Starbucks is the undefeated champion of coffee, and we highly doubt any new company will ever come along and change that. Oh, hot damn, this is gonna be good. Today, we're talking about 7 Brew, the new coffee chain that's coming for Starbucks. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History Food channel. After that, please leave a comment and let us know what other upstart chains you'd like to hear about. Okay, let's see what's brewing in the world of coffee. 7 Brew enters the chat as the newest player trying to muscle its way into the crowded American caffeine coliseum. In just a few short years, the brand has positioned itself as a fast-rising, hyper-energetic alternative to Starbucks. Despite being relatively young, 7 Brew has already built a reputation for speed, personality, and a menu that essentially says, we do what we do well, and then that's it. As with all great American dining franchises, this story begins many years ago in 2017. That's right, 7 Brew was founded in Rogers, Arkansas by Ron Kroom, basically around the same time the Nintendo Switch 1 came out. At the time, it was a lone double-sided coffee stand on a small patch of land, not the billion-dollar franchise machine it would eventually become. Kroom's modest caffeine kiosk would soon get swept up in a series of acquisitions and leadership shakeups that transformed 7 Brew from a regional curiosity into a national chain with breakneck expansion goals. From day one, the vision for 7 Brew was simple. What if getting coffee was actually pleasant, the process was actually fast, and you actually liked the drink when you got it? We know, game changer. And everything about the original stand reflected that high-energy, community-first idea. Drinks were bright, customizable, and sugary enough to make dentists start sweating. Employees were encouraged to chat, hype people up, and make real connections. Far more authentic than the phony customer service smiles you get at establishments where everyone looks like they're being held there against their will.
Phonier. Phonier! Ah, there it is.
One of the key early decisions was to go all in on a drive-through only model. Not a cafe with a drive-through, not a hybrid, just a box in the middle of a parking lot handing you caffeine. Trust us, it looks cooler than it sounds. The tiny footprint kept overhead low, construction fast, and service times hilariously short. The result was a model that could scale at warp speed, push huge volume through minimal square footage, and dodge the costs of seating, restrooms, and those customers who hang around long enough that they basically owe rent. The early menu revolved around what the company now calls the 7 Originals, 7 signature drinks that defined the brand from day one. Blondies, brunettes, the Smooth 7, cinnamon roll, white chocolate mocha, German chocolate, sweet and salty. The kind of names that will make you wonder if you're still ordering a beverage or joining a themed improv troupe. The menu has expanded wildly since then, but those 7 drinks formed the backbone of the brand and laid the foundation for the customization-heavy culture that still fuels 7 Brew today. By 2019, 7 Brew was already buzzing, operating 14 stands and quietly positioning itself as the next big thing in drive-through caffeine. Then the chain hit the gas. It expanded to 40 locations by the end of 2022, but 2023 was the real jolt. 7 Brew exploded to 180 locations, a mind-melting 373% jump in a single year. Industry watchers couldn't ignore it, at least not without putting themselves at risk of crashing their car into a 7 Brew that sprung up overnight. But, as with any great story, it doesn't really get good until the investment bankers show up. In February 2024, Blackstone stepped in with a major growth equity investment meant to turn 7 Brew from a rising star into a national caffeine superpower. The results came fast. By the end of 2024, the chain had reached 321 locations. By October 2025, 7 Brew was celebrating its 500th store in Toms River, New Jersey. 2 months after that, it blew past 600 locations across 38 states, cementing itself as one of the fastest-growing beverage brands in the country. Franchising was the rocket booster behind that rise. After Drink House Holdings acquired the company, 7 Brew entered its national franchise era, rolling out a development program that immediately attracted multi-unit operators nationwide. By late 2024, franchisees had already committed to roughly 2,500 future stands. At this pace, if they keep accidentally 10 timesing their store count every year, we'll all be living inside a 7 Brew by 2033. A caffeinated dystopia, sure, but at least the vibes will be good in the morning. A huge part of the appeal for franchisees is the low overhead. Unlike traditional restaurants, which need ovens, seating, and a designated area for people to do the thing you do when you pound a ton of caffeine at 8 a.m., 7 Brew limits the entire customer experience to the front seat of your car. By sharing essentially zero space with guests, they can focus on the only thing that matters, blasting out drinks at speeds that violate several known laws of physics. The drinks themselves poured fuel on the expansion, just as much as the real estate did. Beyond the original 7 coffees, 7 Brew introduced its 7 Energy lineup with flavors like Ocean Breeze, Nightshade, and Pixie Stick, the 7 Fizz series of infused sparkling waters, and the legendary 777, a smooth 7 with 6 shots of espresso for people attempting to glimpse the future on purpose. What began as 7 drinks has exploded into more than 20,000 or so possible flavor combinations, spanning coffee, teas, shakes, smoothies, lemonades, and basically anything that can exist in a cup. The buildings evolved just as fast. The earliest stands were compact modular units, built off-site like caffeinated Lego bricks and dropped onto lots between 8 and 50,000 square feet. But in April 2025, 7 Brew decided to experiment a walk-through location inside a Walmart in Springdale, Arkansas. Then a second walkthrough at Ohio State University, opening the door for formats that go beyond the chain's drive-through roots. These new formats showed that 7 Brew wasn't just about cars. It was about being wherever people wanted to spend their money on coffee, whether that was a retail corridor or a college campus. And because it's the law now, apparently, there's a secret menu, a collection of customer-requested combos that exist purely through word of mouth and daring. Fans have documented creations like the funnel cake, lavender bliss, raspberry truffle, the monster mash smoothie made with pomegranate, blue raspberry, and lavender, and salted honey chai tea.
What did you just say? Chai tea? Chai means tea, bro. You're saying tea.
Anyway, it's basically a Willy Wonka factory for coffee. If you can imagine it, a brewista will almost certainly blend it, and probably with a side of theatrical flair. Marketing scaled just as fast as the drinks and real estate. By 2025, 7 Brew had partnered with Dude Perfect, opened a walkthrough at their Dallas headquarters, and lined up with a co-branded drink for 2026. Corporate alliances with Taco Bell, Jersey Mike's, and Walmart then pushed the brand well beyond the drive-through lane. Outside of the business side of the business, they've also got a pretty robust community outreach program. The 7 Brew Hero Initiative honors 500 locals a month and crowns a $10,000 Hero of the Year, while Caffeine for a Cause and Children's Miracle Network partnerships round out the charity side. The loyalty program is equally generous, 100 points per drink, 1,000 for a free one, and a giant free birthday drink, ideal for celebrating another year on Earth with enough caffeine to leave your body. Anyhow, this all seems really positive. Hopefully the next chapter is not about a bunch of 7 Brew related controversies. So it turns out, like every brand that has a fun vibe and a knack for expansion, 7 Brew has stirred up more than its fair share of trouble.
Bugger. I was so surprised. Were you surprised? I was surprised.
The first problem was the ownership lawsuit that hit in early 2023. Stillwater Brew LLC, owned by Jimmy John founder Jimmy John Leotoad, sued Drinkhouse Holdings and Bar 7 Bar LLC, claiming they weren't giving him access to corporate books and records. Drinkhouse shot back with a countersuit in March, accusing Leotoad's side of failing to bring in the 500 franchisees they had promised and alleging fraudulent inducement. The whole thing eventually fizzled when Leotoad sold his shares during the Blackstone investment in 2024. But for a moment, the corporate drama was brewing stronger than the espresso. Then came the Brevet controversy, a TikTok-fueled panic where someone confidently announced that every 7 Brew coffee was secretly made Brevet style, which means with half and half. And that sent calorie-conscious viewers into a spiraling existential crisis. And truth was much less dramatic. Only 4 of the 7 originals are Brevets by default, and every drink can be made with whole, skim, oat, almond, or coconut milk. But once TikTok decides something is real, it takes a small army, or at least a large PR department, to convince people otherwise. But just as that broke, the rag controversy hit. Don't worry, it's dumber than it sounds. A September 2024 TikTok showed an employee using a drink-wiping rag to clean a dog's face, then a customer's car, then a drink cup, in that order. This is the sort of multi-surface usage that sends food safety inspectors into cold sweats. 7 Brew responded quickly, said they addressed the issue at the store level, and reiterated that sanitation actually matters. Still, the internet had itself a week. Nutritionally speaking, there are definitely legitimate concerns, and the numbers can get wild if you don't watch how you order. A 16-ounce Brevet, for example, clocks in around 455 calories, while the same drink made with 2% milk lands closer to 190. Customers can also tone things down with 11 sugar-free flavors, 3 sugar-free sauces, and sweetness options ranging from a quarter sweet to extra sweet. And since 7 Brew sells pure customization as part of its identity, these choices matter a lot. Where 7 Brew really shakes things up is in the way it positions itself directly against Starbucks, by not being anything like Starbucks. There's no seating, no cavernous cafe, no acoustic playlist from 2014, just cars, caffeine, and texters with iPads, taking orders before you even hit the speaker box. And the contrast works because Starbucks has been taking some heat. Critics, for example, have long pointed out that Starbucks relies on a uniform dark roast that can make everything taste vaguely the same. And the best reason to do that is to cover up lower bean quality. Customers also complain about slipping service standards and the nutritional drift of Starbucks' biggest hits, some of which at this point are basically dessert in a cup. And let's not forget all the labor problems Starbucks is always instigating. Not that you could when their locations are so frequently subject to picket lines over unfair labor practices. Against that backdrop, a peppy drive-thru staffed by energetic brewistas starts to look pretty appealing. On the variety front, it's not even close. Thanks to 29 syrups and 4 sauces, 7 Brew offers over, 20,000 flavor combinations. Their menu jumps between coffees, infused energy drinks, teas, lemonades, smoothies, shakes, and even the notorious 777, which packs 6 shots of espresso into one drink and roughly 383 milligrams of caffeine, a number that suggests you may briefly achieve astral projection.
You're crazy. I like you, but you're crazy.
Pricing and customization tip further in 7 Brew's favor. A medium drink is often the same size as a Starbucks large, but about $1 cheaper depending on your location. Many locations offer extras, cold foam, drizzles, dairy alternatives, without upcharges, a concept Starbucks abandoned sometime around the Bronze Age. You can also choose your sweetness down to the quarter level, something Starbucks doesn't even come close to matching. The aforementioned loyalty program pushes the contrast further, since Starbucks Rewards is widely described as having turned super greedy, and that's not usually the rep you want for your loyalty program. Taste-wise, public sentiment has been drifting. Starbucks has faced backlash for its bitter coffee, as well as its overly sugary drinks, increasingly inconsistent recipes, and a sense that the magic is fading. So it does make sense that competition would eventually start to brew. And compared to other competitors, 7 Brew is holding its own in a crowded field. It competes with Starbucks and Dunkin' on scale, while also going head-to-head with drive-thru specialists like Dutch Bros and Scooters. A typical stand pulls in around $2 million a year in gross sales, putting it in the same revenue bracket as major national players. By 2025, 7 Brew had become the second largest drive-thru only coffee chain in the country, behind only Dutch Bros and their 1,000+ units. It's basically the business equivalent of just screaming, Like any caffeine junkie, 7 Brew shows no signs of slowing down. Their website practically screams at you with stats about the thousands of drink combinations you can get at the hundreds of stands they have in dozens of states. And it does so in a tone that says, these numbers are going to be way bigger by the time you finish this sentence. And they're not done racking up sponsorships and collaborations either. You can find articles announcing partnerships with everything from Animal Humane Society to further private equity backing. You know, 2 organizations with remarkably similar philosophies. But 7 Brew's own philosophy is clear: endless expansion, maximum enthusiasm, and a suspiciously high tolerance for risk and/or cold foam. At this point, 7 Brew isn't just scaling, it's metastasizing, but it's doing it in a fun way. After Blackstone's investment and a franchise pipeline boasting more than 2,500 additional stands, the brand is positioned less like a coffee chain and more like a nationwide infrastructure project. If they continue multiplying locations at their current speed, there's a non-zero chance many of you will be holding a 7 Brew while they watch this video. Together, the expansion, the partnerships, the low-friction business model, and the endlessly remixable drinks all point toward one thing. 7 Brew doesn't just want to compete with Starbucks. It wants to outspeed, out-hype, and out-caffeinate every coffee chain in America. And judging by the numbers they love to plaster everywhere, they're well on their way. So what do you think? And are you heading to 7 Brew after watching this video? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from Weird History Food.